So Birds of Prey crashed and burned at the box office. Who didn't see that coming? Yet another feminist film proves to be a mediocre failure. How many times y'all gonna make this movie? Y'all been making the same damn movie since the 2016 Ghostbusters, and with the exception of Captain Mary Sue and Ray Palpatine, all of them have bombed in theaters. This didn't work with Terminator Dark Fate, didn't work with Charlie's Angels, didn't work with Ocean's 8, so why would you think it would work with Birds of Prey and the craptacular destruction of one Harley Quinn? But let's just drink in how hard this bombed. From the Wrap, quote, "The box office got an unpleasant surprise this weekend as Warner Brothers / Birds of Prey has fallen well short of expectations and posted a $33.2 million opening weekend from 4,239 screens. The worst start for a DC Comics adaptation since Jonah Hex in 2010. Damn! So why did this movie bomb? That's a rhetorical question. We all know the answer is feminism. Most of the marketing for this film was built around trashing the predominantly male audience. Why anyone thinks that bashing the people most likely to see the film is a good idea is beyond me. Even more bizarre is that Warner Brothers just watched Charlie's Angels fail doing this very thing. So they saw that telling male fans that the movie was basically an attack on them for being male and wasn't for them resulted in no men or women going to see the movie. And they decided to keep marketing Birds of Prey that way. Brilliant decision. Of course, the Wrap blames the R rating. Quote, "The breakdown of the cinema score demographics might provide a clue. The highest scores came from audiences under the age of 25, who gave the film a higher grade than the overall average at A-. But the film's R rating has prevented those younger audiences from turning out en masse. Moviegoers under 18 only accounted for 14%, and unlike other R-rated hits from WB like Joker and It, reception and turnout from older audiences wasn't strong enough to make up for that loss." Yeah, that sounds like bullshit. Anyone 16 or older can get into an R-rated film alone. So are we really supposed to believe that the film's main audience is 15 years old or younger? Probably not the case. Most of the people who want to see this movie would be fans of Suicide Squad, and they're likely over the age of 16, so that's not a good excuse. The reality is that the allure of Suicide Squad wore off pretty fast. You had about a year of people loving it, then they stopped. The DC movies haven't fared well, and that's also a problem. Then you consider the changes to Harley's look and the obscure focus of the film based on the trailers, and there's not a lot to make anyone want to go and see this movie. Add to that fans of the real Birds of Prey will take one look at this and realize none of these characters are right, and you will lose that potential audience. And then in comes the feminism. The all men are misogynist marketing didn't help at all. It did result in far-left critics praising the film for its open and subtle misandry, as we've seen with other films that have done this. But unless the movie is attached to a major franchise, injecting sexist ideology into the film pretty much guarantees a box office bomb. Again, they've made this movie like half a dozen times in the last 5 years. No one likes these movies. They find the main characters boring, narcissistic, selfish, cruel, vapid, and generally unlikable. All the female characters, no matter how horrible, are presented as good, while all the male characters are bad, cowards, or comic relief. The female characters are also incredibly violent, usually directing that exclusively at men and boys. Why is it that feminist power fantasies inevitably involve violence against men, usually sexualized violence, and always some underlying preemptive, "you were gonna hurt me, so I'm gonna hurt you first" sentiment? I don't know why this is so common in feminist films, but it's all over the place. So now we're seeing the "why did it bomb" routine, and of course it's because men don't want to see strong women. In comes the legendary Gerry Conway. I'm sure a comic book creator of such high esteem will have something productive to say. Quote, "I'm so disappointed by Birds of Prey box office and what it says about the male audience for superhero films. Here's my controversial take, don't hate me. The movie didn't pull teenage boys because Margot Robbie didn't want Harley Quinn to be sexualized as she was in Suicide Squad." Oh, for fuck's sake. You're blaming boys? You're blaming teenage boys for not seeing the movie that literally wasn't made for them. Okay, let's hear your totally not sexist and insulting argument. Quote, "It's horribly shallow, but there we are. I'll bet that much of Harley's appeal for young men in Suicide Squad was a hypersexualization of her body in a midriff shirt and short shorts that emphasized her buttocks and legs. To her credit, Robbie wanted to attack that. Yeah, and I'm willing to bet that far more women were enamored by Robbie's look than boys. I'm going to go on a further limb and say that the success of Suicide Squad hinged on its tone and look, not Robbie's barely existent buttocks. But you're right. It is horribly shallow to think teen boys only or mostly went to see the movie for a snack pack of eye candy when they could just download the film or visit any one of the thousands of free porn sites. No, they're supposed to pay $12 for a movie they didn't care about to see some thigh and midriff. What is this, 1953? Oh gosh, she's going to show an ankle. Where's the Jergens? He goes on, quote, "The result was a complete desexualization of Harley and Birds. So much so that we see her in baggy overalls or baggy pajamas, etc. throughout. Her fellow birds are also desexualized. In the abstract and politically, this is good. For whom? Harley looks like a coked out Punky Brewster, and yes, I'm old enough to remember the cartoon and the live action show. Don't let the voice fool you, I'm almost 40. Anyway, Harley looks like a child, and the rest of the characters don't fare better. They turn Black Canary into an actual black woman for no reason. You change Cassandra Cain from this to this. Huntress looks like a generic Arrow character, and Rosie Perez is basically playing herself. Honestly, take away the color grading and they look like a cast from a preschool PBS show. They don't look like they belong in a PG movie, let alone an R-rated movie. And keep in mind that the majority of fans of Harley are grown women, not little girls. What normal woman wants to dress like she just walked off the set of Lamb Chops? It's interesting though that most feminist attempts to desexualize women means making women unpretty. Let's just take away anything that would make this person attractive or even interesting to look at and either make them fat, bland, or bedazzle their whole body. Who other than red wig wearing, big glasses wearing uber feminists is this meant to appeal to? Obviously no boys, gay, straight, or anything in between are interested in this, but what girls and women want to look like this? And keep in mind, all these characters look fine in most of their TV and comic book appearances. You could have picked any one of these looks and toned down the comic book element, but instead you went with this in some stupid effort to punish men for liking attractive women. He goes on, quote, "But superhero films unfortunately depend for a large part on their audience of young men, and without special powers or truly mind-bending special effects, what would draw young men to see Birds of Prey if there's no, TNA. It's crass, horrible, shallow. So there's no such thing as badass action set pieces, huge explosions, epic adventures, or great storytelling. Those don't exist, and boys don't like any of that kind of stuff. Then explain Rambo, Rocky, The Godfather, The Shining, any Jackie Chan movie, The Hangover. I could go on and on. There are plenty of movies boys like that don't involve tits and ass or special effects. So maybe get your head out of the gutter and out of boys' pants." Then he says, quote, "Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman were hits because they provided superhero powers, big special effects, and yeah, beautiful women who look good in tight-fitting outfits. To her credit, Margot Robbie wanted to challenge the need for any of that. Yeah, that's not what happened. Wonder Woman was a hit because it featured a well-known character who had never been on the big screen, and it turned out not to be a complete mess of a DC film, unlike the previous Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad films. Captain Mary Sue coasted on the upcoming Avengers Endgame film, with Disney heavily implying people needed to see it in order to follow Endgame. That turned out not to be true, and the movie itself was a mediocre, forgettable feminist manifesto. That said, Gal Gadot's beauty, particularly her inclusive attitude, probably brought in more men and boys than Brie, "I don't want to hear some 40-year-old white guy's opinion," Larson's smug condescension. And I think the difference between their two approaches speaks volumes about the women themselves, their PR agents, and the characters they portray. Technically, Wonder Woman comes from a man-hating society, but as a character, that's not what she represents. You would believe Diana would risk her life to save a man or a boy, that she would care that they were hurt, and that anyone who causes that hurt, even a woman, she would destroy without hesitation. Captain Marvel, on the other hand, kills other heroes at random, appears to have no sense of morality or justice, and in all probability is like 2 seconds from molesting Miles Morales. So Margot Robbie, having seen how much Brie Larson pissed off male fans with her anti-male feminist bullshit, and how Gal Gadot won most people over with her warm and charming personality and message, decided that Brie's perspective was the best way to go, and now she's surprised that men didn't turn out to see the film. And by the way, where are all the unattractive male superheroes? All these men have to get into ridiculous shape to play these roles, to no one's complaint. There's no attempt to cast regular or unattractive men in these roles. Hell, they had to cake on makeup and put a fat suit on Chris Hemsworth to make him look fat, and he still looked like a hot guy pretending to be fat. So look at the dichotomy here. It's fine for grown women to oogle still teenage Tom Holland's ass, and it's fine to expect him to get into a tight skin suit and show off his body, but God forbid a grown woman have to look attractive in a film. Gerry wraps up by saying, quote, "Unfortunately, what she may have proved is that the male audience for superhero movies isn't as mature as we'd like to hope, and the female audience isn't large enough to compensate." Yeah, insult men. That's the ticket. That worked so well with 2016 Ghostbusters, Ocean's 8, Terminator Dark Fate, Disney Star Wars, Captain Marvel, Charlie's Angels, Doctor Who, and Star Trek Discovery. Hey Gerry, it's not a sign of maturity to sit through a film that treats everyone who looks like you like a villain. It's not a sign of maturity to support creators who literally say the movie isn't meant for you. It is a sign of maturity to go, fine, I'll see something else, and otherwise not comment on the sheer sexist bigotry driving those creators. But as you can see, I'm not mature, so I'll say what needs to be said. Instead of blaming teen boys for not seeing something not meant for them, why don't you blame the woke women who didn't show up? Half the population is female, at least 10% of them are feminist. If they went to see the movie, it'd be a hit. But none of those sanctimonious ideologues could get off their Jabba the Hutt asses and go see the movie made for them. Where are all the vapid pouty face uber bitch feminists? I know y'all exist in the hundreds of thousands because y'all asses show up every January for your annual Entitled Bitches March. You can spend tens of thousands of dollars on pussy hats, but you can't go and see a movie? If ever you wanted proof there is no audience for this shit, here you go. This was a perfect vehicle for this feminist nonsense. B-list characters only comic book fans would really know, no massive history to have to deal with, a veritable blank slate to work with, and they couldn't pull it off. Hell, the strong female director had to bring in someone from John Wick to direct the action scenes. You literally had to get a man to do your job. You didn't want to just call up Patty Jenkins to see how she made Wonder Woman look cool? Because she didn't have a problem doing it. Nah, you literally got a man to do something you didn't know how to do. Not even asking for help, but actually had him do it for you like he's opening a fucking jar. That said, I thought Birds of Prey was all about female empowerment and challenging toxic masculinity in the male gaze. If that's the case, then why are you so concerned with male validation? Remember, this movie isn't for men, so what does it matter whether or not we like it? See, I think this isn't about female empowerment, but really about that male validation. You want male attention. You just want to control it, and you're mad because you can't. You don't decide what men and boys find interesting. They do. And they've made it very clear that they don't find your anti-male violent feminist fantasies remotely interesting. So if you want their dollars, make what they like, but you're not going to insult your way to box office success. And I suspect the reason why is because there's really no way to own men with this. With Star Wars, it was about taking something men and boys liked and intentionally ruining it. The same with Star Trek and Doctor Who. To a lesser extent, that was what happened with Captain Marvel. She's now the most powerful character ever and can defeat Thanos in one punch, basically making the men who fought him look weak and stupid in comparison. But Harley Quinn is no Batman, and she's no Joker. You're not even gonna come close to that level because as presented on screen, she's just an obsessed Joker groupie. You're not really owning men by removing Joker and then claiming his former groupie is making a name for herself. This seems to be where this stuff falls apart. The attempt to tear down men kind of doesn't work if men don't play along. I don't have to see this movie. This feminist trope of telling men this isn't for you is as effective as a girl you're not interested in telling you I wouldn't have sex with you. You're not punishing me by saying I can't have something I don't want. Maybe some of the articles are right that if the movie had been rated PG-13, it could have gotten a bigger draw. I think that is separate more from the anti-male marketing, coming out too long after Suicide Squad, and the fact that anything tied to the DC Snyder films still kind of rubs people the wrong way. Aquaman did way better than anyone expected. You'd have thought Shazam would have picked up some of that, but it didn't, and that should have been your first indication about this movie's chances. This movie should be a lesson to Hollywood and feminists. Stop insulting the male audience. You're not going to insult your way to box office success. None of us have to see movies. So if you keep telling us not to give you our money, we won't give you our money. So you and the other 5 people who actually paid to see Birds of Prey can go on social media and pretend this is the best comic book movie you've ever seen all you want. You can clam slam until your walls collapse, but the numbers don't lie. Nobody went to see this movie because y'all would rather tweet about how awesome the film is than actually go and see it. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.